more, but let's go to a little bit broader scenario. In the software, we have individual items. As you guys can see, they're listed usually below all the groups. And this is going to be the exact same thing that everybody got in their software when you moved over to the .NET or the Enterprise Pro software. Let's take a group and example. And I'm going to try and keep this fairly simple, but this will give you a little bit of a broader picture of how some of these tools work. You'll see each group has a description, what it includes. So we've got very basic, which is oil changes and tire rotations. We've got standard groups, which is the oil change and tire rotation, and then all your fluid flushes. We've got a preventative maintenance group that does the oil changes, the rotations, all your fluid flushes, plus all your filters. And then we can even use an extended group, which kind of takes it to a very, very large scenario. You can see from the list, we're going to track things like filters, belts, cooling system hoses, shocks, and struts. So you can pick from the list, or we're going to show you a little bit later how to create your own. I'm going to select a standard group, which has these items or reminder items in it. I'm going to click on OK. And now, just like I did on the individuals, I'm presented with a list of intervals. So on each of these, I can simply use my drop down. The 30,000, 30-month 30,000 is what we call the default. It's the top one on the list, okay? But in my case, like I said, I'm going to do them all at 60,000. So I'm going to go through this list right quick and set all my fluids at 60,000, okay? And we're going to reach a hiccup here. Okay, here I've got a hydraulic clutch. Well, my vehicle doesn't have a hydraulic clutch. So what I'm going to use is a skip, meaning this doesn't apply. So I'm going to skip that item. I don't have a manual transmission. I've got an automatic transmission. So I'm going to skip that item. So I'm just going to go down this list. Now, while I'm doing this, hopefully you guys understand the best way to do this, the best practice, is to have your customer standing right in front of you, if that's possible. If you get your customers buy-in on these things, there's going to be a better commitment. On the fuel injection flush, I'm going to pull that in at once a year. On my oil change, I work from home. I use conventional oil. So my zone is around 4 months or 3,000 miles. And again, in my scenario, I try to rotate my tires every other oil change. So now I've taken a group and I've customized this, hopefully with the agreement of my customers, so there's buy-in. And when I click on OK, those items now are applied. Note that any previous items that were on here are now updated, meaning the automatic transmission fluid flush, that was already on there and that was part of the group. And then I've singled out the air filter back here. So you guys can see all these services, when they were last performed, when they're next due. The items that aren't applicable, you can leave them. They're not going to do any harm. They're really not going to do any harm. So you do have the ability, if you would like, although it's not needed, you can go in and delete those items off of that list. So anything that doesn't apply to this vehicle, if you want to keep it nice and clean, less confusing, you can get those items off of your list by simply selecting delete. So now I've got a really nice group of service items in here that I can see. I can see which items have been serviced, when they're next due. I can see which items have not been serviced. And as we said earlier, if there is no history of this service or trigger on file, then the due date is going to be the manufacturer, the year of manufacture against the interval. So we've talked a little bit about adding. We've talked a little bit about editing, but let's just spend a minute more on editing. Let's just say by chance that we entered this wrong and the customer says, no, I've changed my mind. That's not a good fit for me. So take the reminder item, select edit, and now you notice your interval can be set up unique to each individual customer. It's not the intervals that are behind this. Now I have the ability to completely customize this. However odd it might be, the customer says every 5 months or however many months, and you can also set these on days if you would rather track days. So you have either or, and you can customize the odometer reading too. So if the customer says, nope, not 4 months, 3,000 miles, then you can customize this to that particular customer. The last one I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and do another add. Okay, I'm going to do a state inspection. We've got some reminders in for the state inspection. Okay, that's the item I want, which we have here in Texas. Then I'm going to select OK on that item. All right, don't know what I did wrong there, so let me go back here to it again. Okay, state inspection. Okay, well, I don't know why I'm not getting my intervals on it. Here it is right here. I should have got a prompt on that. Maybe when it's a fixed date, it doesn't do that. My apologies, I should know that, but let's just show you guys how to do it. When we use a fixed date type, then we identify the date. I think my inspection's coming up here somewhere in July. So I'm going to go down to July and say July 1st. Now you may want to be out in front of that a little bit too, so that you don't wait till it's due. Maybe you start talking to the customer about it a month ahead of time. And then the interval would be how many times is this going to happen per year? And in my case, it's going to happen once every year. So by applying that, then now the system knows that I need to have my inspection done. Again, when I perform the state inspection, it's going to bring that item back. Last item on the list for here is going to be the flags that you see over on the right-hand side. An item that is past due is going to carry a red. It's kind of orange, but let's just say it's red. Okay, a red flag means this item is past due. A green flag that you see on the items means that it is not due. It's coming due, but this is due in 2019, so we've got quite a bit of time. I don't have a representation in here, I'm sorry, but a yellow flag would be for any item that is coming due in the very near future. I tried to get some information on exactly what that time frame is, and I wasn't able to get it. I did try some things, so I'm going to assume probably within 30 days. So if there's a service that's due within the next 30 days, it's going to have a yellow flag on it. Don't hold me to the grind on the 30 days, but yellow flags will mean that the item is coming due. So hopefully everybody can get a little knowledge from this and apply some reminders. Let's select Save. So I've now got an item on, or a group of reminder items on this vehicle. You can see I've added it from the contacts. How's that going to work? Let's go to the work in progress. Let's go to the work order that I've got in my system, and let's just say the customer came in today for an oil change. When I did my questionnaire, they want to use synthetic oil. They want to use whatever the manufacturer recommends. So that's my questionnaire. Let's take a look at the reminders at the work order. All those reminders that I added from the vehicle under contacts automatically apply, so they're going to carry forward. Keep in mind again, you've got the manufacturer service intervals here. If that's something you want to use and reference when you're setting these up with your customer, it's always there for you. And here are all the items on the list. Okay, so let's go here and take a little bit of time on a poll question. Okay, so we're going to select our next poll question. We'll throw that up on the screen. And our question is going to be, I'm trying to read it here. In what ways can a reminder item due date be reset? I guess that's not the question. Guys, I'm sorry, our questions are a little bit off track here. I'm trying to get to exactly what the question is, but I'm not seeing it. Okay, reminder item due dates are used. And let me just see if I can get a little more information out of that. Sorry guys, we got a little bit off track with our poll questions. Okay, if I could only see it, my apologies guys. Reminder item.
Can you see it now?
Unfortunately, no, I can't.
Okay, it's
I can see it a little bit.
Reminder item due dates are used to automatically calculate the next appointment date in the posting screen, true or false?
Okay, so the answer to that is true. Okay, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on that topic, so let's dive back into the system here. Okay, so we've got my screen up, all right, and our customer has come in for an oil change. I just want to bring your attention back to the oil change, which has no history in it. Now, simply by going into the system and adding a service for the oil change, okay, these are what trigger the oil change intervals. I'm going to select a synthetic oil. I'm going to add that oil change onto my system. Simply by adding the trigger, in this case being the oil change, if we go back to our reminders, under the oil change is going to be updated. In other words, it's going to stamp that last service with today's date and the current odometer reading. Now, if this job sets idle today and doesn't get posted till tomorrow, then the date is going to change. The date is actually going to represent the date that the invoice was posted. So simply by adding that service onto the system, it's automatically going to bring that item forward, okay? There are other ways of updating the reminders. There's a couple of ways of doing that. The best way to update your reminders is obviously to perform the service. But let's just take an example, the air filter. I haven't done an air filter. It's not due for an air filter. Well, the system says it's due, but when I looked at the air filter looks fine. So in order to bring that interval and the next due date up to par, what I'm going to do is inquire with my customer. So if I can get your system, your reminder system brought up to date, do you know approximately when the air filter was last changed? Okay, so when we have a service that we have not performed, okay, either the customer did it or another shop did it, I still have the ability to bring my reminder group up to date. So I'm going to take the specific item. I have no history, but I know the air filter has been changed. I'm going to select Remedy. Remedy allows me to manually update the reminder item. So I would ask the customer approximately when was the air filter replaced. So we can just simply drill down on the months. If the customer says, I think it was back in March sometime, fine. I'm not going to ask them for a specific date. You could if they had an invoice. What I always do is just go to the middle of the month. March is good enough. I'm going to pick the 15th because that usually identifies approximately the middle of the month. I would probably ask the customer what was the approximate odometer reading at the time. Okay, this odometer reading is the odometer reading of the last service at the shop. Okay, so I can adjust that. If it was done at 160,000, then that's what I'm going to put in. I can identify a note. Actually, I have to identify a note, and I'm going to say that the customer replaced it. If it was an other shop, whatever notes you can put in there, okay? Or free-form notes for you guys to type in, and then you're going to select that service because that is what's going to update the reminder. And when I select OK, now you're going to see that the air filter was changed. It was a manual entry, which is what's called a remedy, okay? And now the software can tell me the next time the air filter is due based upon the interval. So see, you don't have to have all the triggers. The triggers are when you perform the service. An example, the oil change. Notice it's automatically updating. But when services are performed outside of your facility, or if you're, setting a brand new reminder group for a customer to get it brought up to date, you can do manual entries. Just so that everybody knows, you see a manual entry I made right here, okay? I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go in here to the vehicle, okay? I'm going to go to history, and when I manually make that entry, look here, it makes a date entry. So here's the air filter remedy that I just did. And on March 15th of 2017, at approximately 160,000 miles, the air filter was placed. Notice I don't have an invoice on it because I didn't do it. It's a remedied entry. So for those items, you guys have the ability to bring the system up to date by doing a remedy. And remedy works different ways in different areas, okay? If you guys will take a little bit of time in the help system, look through some of the tours, you're going to see all the options that you have available to remedy and bring these items up to date. Okay, so keep in mind, when you remedy an item, it is automatically going to take you into, it's going to take that item into the history. Okay, so let's go ahead and process this. Okay, so we bring all of our reminder items up to date. I'm just going to quickly go in and grab a little bit of oil from inventory here. We said we wanted synthetic oil, so I'll bring back the synthetic oil. I'm not going to look up the filter. Actually, let me show you guys something. I am going to do a catalog lookup. My default supplier lookup is Advanced Auto Parts in this case. Okay, it's a little sleepy because of our meeting. And looky here, when I do my catalog lookup, even though it's from Advanced Auto Parts, it finds a part number in my inventory, and it says that I have 2 of them on the shelf. I just thought I'd throw that in. That's the oil filter I want to put on. I'm going to apply. And then the software says, well, do you want to pull the oil filter out of inventory, or do you want to order one in from Advanced? I'm going to pull it out of inventory. Okay, so there's a little tidbit for you. So now my job's done, okay? And let's talk about how we move this thing forward, okay? So what we really want to do now is go ahead and push this job forward in the system, okay? And when we do that, we're going to end up with a couple of different scenarios that are really going to talk about the reminder dates and how all these things work. So when I post an invoice, the goal is that that invoice is then going to go in and update or stamp the last service dates, okay? Now there are some options on the posting. Remember, we talked about we have the ability to let the software guide us on the next appointments when we have reminders. I'm simply going to take you in real quick before I post this into the setup. I'm going to take you down to the location settings. And let's look at this general area right here under work orders. I want to focus on 2 main things for today's webinar. Book next appointment when posting the invoice. Okay, so with this box checked, meaning it's activated, whenever I post an invoice, the software is going to prompt me to schedule a next visit. Let's just leave it at that for right now, and I'm going to walk through a couple of examples.